So now we're going to talk about record sets. We're going to leverage everything we just did in a little bit more of a complex document. But before we actually set up a record set in the Send environment, I wanted to mention a couple of things to you that you need to keep in mind. These will be separate trainings, but Adobe Sign can handle documents as large as 50 megabytes. So those of you that are considering the fact that you're going to need to electronically seal your record sets on or before January the 1st, 2020 to be in compliance with PD 21.1, you need to know the following. One is, you're probably thinking, well, most of my record sets are bigger than that. Correct. So if the document's bigger than 50 megabytes, you're going to have to do one of two things. Either make it smaller by printing it to PDF. That will usually consolidate the image quite a bit. If that still doesn't get it less than 50 megabytes for a single file, then you're going to need to break the document up into however many 50 megabyte or less component pieces it takes. And then each one of those component pieces would be sent out. That's a separate training that's been recorded that shows you how to break a document up into manageable pieces that Adobe Sign can handle, and then how to reassemble them into a portfolio so they appear as one file after they've been sealed. So again, that's something you need to remember is the size of the document. It's got to be less than 50 megabytes. And there's also a page limitation of 999 pages. It's either or. So if you have a record set that's 600 pages, that's fine, but it can't be over 50 megabytes. If you've got a set of project special provisions, it's only 20 megabytes, but it's 1,300 pages, that's going to have to be broken up because it's either limit, 999 pages or 50 megabytes. It's one of the two. It's got to be both, less than 999 pages and less than 50 megabytes for it to work. Okay, so those are the big ones. Now let's go to the Send environment, and we'll leverage what we've already done and do it with a record set. So I'm going to slow down for just a minute here to show you something. E-signature applications, by and large, require 2 signatures in order for an agreement or a document to be executed by the program. What if you're the only person sealing a record set because there isn't any other engineer that needs to seal the document? There's a very special way that you can get around the fact that you have to have 2 recipients when you're really the only one. And the way that's done is by not beginning to enter email addresses here. You need to use something called a recipient group. What is that? A recipient group is a capability that allows anyone in a given group to sign on behalf of that group. And notice when I clicked on recipient group, a box, a light blue box came up. You see it with the borders around it here. The email addresses have to be entered in the box. If you enter them down here, it will not work. It will tell you that you haven't assigned someone a place to look. So we're going to trick the system in the case of a record set, which a large percentage of the ones we do require only the signature from one engineer. Even though it's on every page, it's one engineer. So again, select the first thing you want to do, add recipient group. The group name does not matter because it isn't persistent. So I usually put something real fancy in here like ABC just to get me by the fact that it's got to have a name. All right, since I'm going to be the only engineer on this, I will put my name in here like so. If I can type, it would help. I'm waiting for it. Once you enter someone's name more than once, it'll show up. It'll parse for it. So there's my name there. And the way you trick the system so that you can be the only signer, in this case Steve would not sign it, is this. You enter your email address with a +1 after your name and before the @ symbol. like it shows here. In this case, it's thomas.bovey+1@state.co.us. Now that very thing will allow a workflow to send the document directly to me, because this other person doesn't actually exist. But that's how you would send, for instance, a record set to be sealed on, say, a chip seal, where there's no critical assets, there's no culverts, there's no retaining walls, there's no bridge work. It's just a 2-inch overlay, and you're inside the right-of-way, and you're the only engineer who needs to sign it. This is what you would do. Again, recipient group, give it a name, ABC, or whatever you want to call it. Put yourself in there, and that's your email address. And then put your email address in there, +1@state.co.us, and you're good to go. That's all there is to it. But that's critical. You are going to make the mistake. You're going to forget that. And you're going to find out, you're going to get an error message that says, if you don't use a recipient group, and you just start putting your email here, and then +1 is the next email address like this. If you do this like this, and I guarantee you'll do it at least once, put this one in here, it isn't going to work. It's going to basically say, when you get ready to send it, this person has nowhere to sign. So you have to use recipient group, okay? Spend a lot of time on that, but we get a lot of errors in that regard. So you need to understand when you use recipient group and when you don't. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put Steve in here. And notice, since he's already in there, I've used him once, I can just start, it parses it. So this is going to be signed by 2 separate people, which is the big percentage of the time what happens with record sets. And of course, there might be 15 people here. Let's talk about roles for a minute. Notice this has a little pen here. The default role is to sign, which is why that little pen is there. However, there are other roles. Notice there's one of an approver. I do my expense reports automatically using Adobe Sign, and the approver is actually the second person, and that's the admin that looks to see that I got the cost centers right, and the expense report meets all the CDOT and IRS guidelines and all that kind of stuff. So you can assign a role of an approver. Here's a case down here, certified recipient. This might be used if you want acknowledgement by a contractor on a form that you've sent out that they've seen it, that kind of thing. Form filler. Delegator is an interesting one that you need to know about from a record set standpoint. So a delegator is someone who doesn't sign themselves, but they assign the person who does the document. In the case of a record set where we have, say, the consultant engineer that works for Yay Engineering has left their company, and you don't know who the person is that replaces him. Well, the principal that owns the consultancy will either sign it for them or assign someone who will, and that's what a delegator does. So the delegation role can be used basically to assign the responsibility to someone else of determining who needs to sign this. So at the moment, Steve and I are both going to sign it, which is why we have that default role. Okay, so the text is correct because the default text is for a record set. So if you'll notice what it says, it's specific to a record set. So we don't need to pick a template here because it's already there. We just need a file, a reminder, and we're good to go. So I'm going to split screen this again. That's the Windows key and right arrow like that. And I'm going to grab a file, this one, but I'll show you something. This file, which is Project 20656, it's the record set plans from Region 4. I don't know if you can see that, but it's 6.4 megabytes. That started out at 49.989, or right on the money. That was a 50 megabyte file. It actually would have worked, but if it was a tiny bit bigger, it wouldn't have worked. So I printed it to PDF and ended up with a file from 50 megs that was 6.5 or 6.468 megabytes. So that's what I meant about having a record set within the limit of less than 999 pages and or less than 50 megabytes. So I'm going to grab this 6 meg record set, drag it over here and drop it right here. Normally I would set a reminder because people are busy, and if you've got 2 or 3 or 6 or 15 people to sign this, by the time it gets to the 5th person, they may have completely forgotten about it. So just because I want to show you how to do it, I'm going to do it, but Steve doesn't need a reminder. I'm going to say every day. That means Saturday and Sunday. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's put every not every week. Let's see. How about every business day? That's probably even better. You notice that little wheel was spinning when I was talking, right? It was a little wheel. I don't know if you saw it. It was actually loading this document. While that wheel is loading, it won't let you go past this point. It'll give you an error message till it's loaded. So now we've got the signing order. We've got the default text. We just don't have the name of the project. So we're going to cut and paste that. Control C, put it here, Control V for paste. And that's what the email message is going to be. So we're ready to rock and roll. You can put a private message here if you want to the sender. I don't often do it unless it's the first time I'm having someone sign something and they don't have a clue. But normally I leave that blank. So we've set it up. We're ready to assign where Steve and I sign. So all you do is hit next. And it's transitioning the document to the cloud as we wait for it to do that. There it goes. The time that it takes to process that document depends on your bandwidth and your network speed. So now we've got an 11 by 17 document, and remember I told you that the system's pretty much set up right now by 11, so I need a slider bar down here. I don't have one, so I need to get rid of this, so I've got a slider bar. There we go. And now I can grab this, and I can move it around. Now, as all of you know, we seal record sets, or we try to, in the lower right-hand corner. And because we want this to be consistent, whether it's engineer 1 or 2 or 3 or 20, we want the size of the seals to meet AES board rules, which is 1 5/8 inches square or 1.625 inches, not more, not less. And we need to limit the scope of the authority of that which we are sealing for, whether it's bridge work, road design, or whatever it is. Templates have been created to minimize the work so that the size and the location is very consistent. That's what templates are for. You could do this all manually, but you'd be here for days doing this, since the current AES board rules call for each and every page of a plan set to be sealed. So we want to cut down as much work as we can, because we've got to mess with every page anyway, but we don't want to have to spend a lot of time on each page. So again, here's the first signer. That's me, supposedly the first engineer. How do we use templates? Well, up here where it says field templates, if you select that, right, and then hit your caret over here so you can see the list, here's all the templates, and this is a record set. So it's probably one of these down here, right? And what you want to remember is that recipient 1, in this case it's me, that's the pink over there on the right, is associated with template number 1 for the record sets. That's very important. You don't ever want to associate participant 3's template with the first signer. It's going to get all messed up. So just keep them in alignment. Participant number 1 for the record set gets this one, and that's me. So I'm going to select that, participant number 1 for the record set, and I'm going to say apply. Boom. There it is. So notice we've got default text. We've got the size of the stamp correct. We've got an automated date field, but it looks like it's out of alignment a little bit. The template's a little bit off. Well, I'd like it to be correct. It's a little bit off on purpose because I want to show you something. You don't want to try to move these individually. You certainly can. But if you do, what happens is then you spend time trying to line them up again, get them next to each other. stretching and moving blocks, the easiest thing to do is just to click the date, hold down your shift key. That's important. Hold down your shift key and then left click on the date field first. Don't click on the other fields because the date field will go behind it. You can get it back, but it's more work. Then click on the stamp, then click on the text, and now and let up on your shift key now. You can move them all as a block. Boom, and they're all in perfect alignment. So again, if you need to select multiple tools like the stamp, the text box, and the date, hold down your shift key and then select them one at a time. When you're done, let up on your shift key and you can move them. So this template's done, and there's a tooltip in here too. I'll show you by tooltip, meaning when the recipient gets it, he or she is going to see some text. And right here is one of the tips they're going to get. That's the default text that you see, but the tip is down here. So they'll get a little message that says, please enter the limitation of the scope of your authority with respect to this project after the default text. That even tells them what they have to do. Enter what the scope of your limitation is for your engineering license, or what are you certifying here? Type it after the words is limited to. All of this kind of assistance helps someone not familiar with the process fill it out correctly. But if you'll notice, you don't have to change any of this stuff here. You don't have to worry about the appearance, the color. Let me get rid of this here. What's that bar? Stay away. Okay, so the color on all these has already been picked. It's already on all of the tools. That 2150 A3, that's CDOT blue. Why is that there? I thought it was cool. So they're all the same. It's going to lend consistency, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You just have to know how do you use the template, when to apply it. Okay, so I'm going to assign me another page to sign here, like right about here. And Adobe Sign appears to know what's on screen. It knows that this is the piece of the page I've got. So again, I'm going to go back, since it's still me, we're still on me signing. I'm going to go back and hit Field Templates. And notice participant number 1 is still selected, so I don't need to select it because it remembers it. So all I have to do is hit Apply. Boom, there it is. So rather than waste any time, I'm going to leave that a little bit out of alignment, but it should be perfect. So I'm going to sign those 2 pages. Now it's time to get Steve's signature, since he's acting as our second engineer. So how do we do that? Again, just like the first document, we want to click this recipients field and select Steve. He's signer number 2. So we're going to use template number 2. Remember, you've got to keep the same. So under Field Templates, we hit the caret because it's on template 1. We don't want that. We want template number 2 right there. Hit Apply. This is where Steve's going to sign. And just so you know, I'm going to go ahead and hit my Shift key, hit Date. If I got them all selected. Oh, didn't quite get them all at once. Did that for a reason. If you don't see the little line around here, around the tool, you don't have them all selected. And what happens is you're only going to move 1 or 2 of them. So when you do that, hold down your Shift key, make sure that you see that little blue box, and then you see it here. Now all 3 have the blue line. They will all move at once now. See it? So if you need to move one because it's over some engineering design, that's how you do it and maintain consistency. Okay, let's give Steve one more page to sign, and then we'll send this. Now, since it's still Steve, we still need template number 2, and it's already there because we're on him. So we hit Apply, and there it is. Now there's something that you need to know. Depending on the plan set, it's pretty quick once you get the hang of applying a template. The page down, hit the template by hitting Apply. Page down, Apply, page down, Apply. You can do that pretty quick. Let's say you're the only engineer that has to sign these plans, and it's a 100-page plan set. If you're the only engineer, there's 1 or 2 things you can do to make this process faster. One of which is these tools like this text box, they have options I just double-clicked on it, by the way, to bring up the properties, or I could have highlighted the tool and right-clicked, right? So one of the options when you right-click is repeat field on all pages. So if there's 100 pages, that field's going to go whoop, in less than a second. Every page is going to have that on it. You can do the same thing with the seal, right? You can right-click and you say repeat on all pages. So you can use the template once for yourself if you're the only signer, and you can repeat it on every page in an instant. But the issue with that is you're going to have, I don't know, anywhere from 15 or 20 pages to, on a bigger project, maybe 75 pages of M&S standards, which are already sealed, right? So you don't need to seal those. So if you apply it on every page, then you're, to get it done quickly and not use the templates, you're going to have to go back to, say, the last 25 pages and delete the fields from the M&S standards, which are already sealed. So it's up to you to decide, to look at the plan set and decide, is it more efficient for me to use one template for myself? I'm the only signer, that's the key. And apply it to every page and then go back and delete the pages where it isn't needed? Or is it more efficient for me to pull the template down on only the pages I need? The one thing Adobe Sign does not do is allow you to repeat it within a range of, like, say repeat this tool from pages 5 through 50. It won't do that. It's on every page from wherever you are to the end of the plan set. That's the only option. So it's a decision you'll have to make as to which is the best way to do it. So let's give Steve one more page to sign right here. We're still on Steve because it's still green, still the same template. We'll say apply the template, except there's a perfect case of why you would want to move this. So if you click on the date field, hold down the shift key again, click the stamp, click the text box. Well, I missed the date. So this is why you want to make sure you got them all. So that's one example of why you would want to move it. And that's the case if you have 2 or 3 or 4 engineers signing this particular page. Sometimes it's hard to find white space, but with this technique, you can move them around pretty good and hunt for white space to actually apply those. So we're actually ready to send this for signature. It's just more of same with more pages, more templates, move them, put them where they need to be, and you're done. So let's assume we've done this whole set, of which I think we've done, 4 or 5 pages maybe. I'm going to say sign and then send down here. And let me mention one other thing that's important before I hit the send key. It has always been the responsibility of the resident engineer and the person in responsible charge, the designer, to know and ensure that a record set is signed or sealed properly. But we haven't had to really know it because prior to electronic signatures, we just bound this stuff up in a big FedEx tube and shipped it off to the consultancy. They mechanically stamped it and then shipped the 50 pounds back to us. So we really didn't know, didn't have to know who signed exactly which page. The bridge designer only signs on pages 3, 5, and 7, for instance. Well, now you have to know that, because what happens is if you set that up wrong, say the bridge designer is supposed to sign page 3, 5, and 7, but you set them up to sign page 3, 5, and 8. Guess what? He or she, the bridge designer, is not going to seal that page 8 because they were supposed to sign on page 7. And what that means is you're starting over again because you cannot modify the document once it's gone out and been executed by anyone. You can't change it. So it's worth your time to invest some time before you set up a record set to make sure you know who signs what pages. I've had one region that actually sends the record set out with everyone that's supposed to sign it as an approver. They don't have to prove anything, but it lets them look at the document and then email the person back saying, I'm the hydraulics guy. I'm supposed to sign pages 10 through 15. However you want to do it, that's just one method. You need to know who signs the document on which pages because you can't change it once it's out. And there's a reason for that. It isn't because it isn't possible to do that, but the only way to maintain security and have a document that would stand up in court is if it can't be changed once it's in the workflow. That's the whole point. But then that puts the burden of setting it up correctly on the person sending it out. So I'm going to say, okay, everything's correct here. We're ready to go. I'm going to hit sign, then send. And then the first thing it should be asking me for, and again, I'd get an automated email if I wasn't in Adobe Sign saying, click here to sign, and then it would take me where you're going to see here in a moment. Okay, so right here, notice it says start over here, right? So I don't have to know what pages I sign on, nothing. It could be page 300 is the first page, but it knows where I'm supposed to. So when I click on this, it takes me right to the first place I'm supposed to sign. Excuse me, see the tooltip? Please enter the limitation scope of your authority. That's pretty plain. That's directions. What do I type here? So I click here and I'll just say, selection of plans and specifications. That's what I'm limiting my seal to. That's what I'm covering. Right? So I'll say next over here. Excuse me. And it says there's another tooltip. Don't resize this because it meets AES board rules which govern our licenses. So when I click that, it says I can select a stamp. This is kind of what Steve was showing you before. So I'm going to say I want an image, and I'm going to say let's select a stamp. And I've got one over here. Let's see, where did I put that? That is under documents, my documents, CDOT, Adobe Sign, integration testing. All right, there is a sign. And it's going to ask you to put your name down here. Now, that's a blank because I'm not a licensed engineer, so I use a fake one. I mean, that's a real stamp, but it's a demo. And when I put apply, there it is. So it's going to remember that when I hit it again. I'll say next. All right, so notice it says selection of plans and specifications is already in there. That's because I'm the sender and it remembers that default text that I just entered, so I don't have to enter it again. I think it only does that, though, or remembers it for the sender. I don't think it will do it for any other recipient. So I don't even need to type it in there. The limitation of scope is already there, the selection of plans and specs. So when I hit next, I don't even have to hit next. If I'm smart and remember this, I can just click here right where the seal is because I know that's what I need to do. There it is. And then when I hit click here to sign, I'm done. But before I do that, I want to mention one thing to you. People ask, well, what is a recipient who's not a CDOT engineer, it's a consultant engineer, what do they have to have? Well, number one, they do not have to have Adobe Sign if they are a recipient or a signer or a sealer. What they need to have is a seal which meets board requirements that can be purchased from an Acorn, just like the nut, acornsales.com for $15. They guarantee that the size of the image meets AES board rules, but what they have to have is that seal and the signature image because the AES board rules require a signature over the seal. So the signature is an image, the seal is an image. Those two images have to be combined into one image so there is a signature here. There isn't a signature here because this isn't a real seal. But you need a single image with the seal itself and the name over it. So that's what contractors have to have, or let's say design engineers who are licensed in sealing record sets. If they ask you, that's what they need. So I'm going to click here to sign, and it's now on its way to Steve for signing. All yours, Steve.
Okay, great. Thank you for walking us through that. And now let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. So again, I'm the second engineer signing this document. So here's the email that I will receive. Very straightforward. I'll click on the link. going to take me directly to the document or the record set so that I could go ahead and apply my seal. The very first pop-up is that private message, and I could just click on next. So what do I say here? Limited to this select
roadway design. That's a good one.
Roadway design. Thanks. Now I'll go ahead and click to upload my stamp, and I have this saved under test seal. So again, mine doesn't have the signature, but yours should. I'll go ahead and apply that. Now I could go to the next field. Now I only have to click on this once to apply the seal again, and I'm good to go. Now I could go ahead and complete my signature or my approval for this particular document.
I think you have one more to sign, Dave. I think you had one more to sign, I think. Because you still had a next.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. Yeah, let me complete that. I didn't catch. So this was the last one. So I would do the exact same thing. And there we go. Now I get the completed here on the top right, so it knows that I am done. And the last thing I need to do is verify my intent by acknowledging the electronic terms of use here on the very bottom. I click to sign, and now I have completed. You'll see the last step here. It lets you know you could download a copy immediately. But as Tom alluded to earlier, we will also email all of the participants a copy of the final executed PDF of the record set. So you'll receive those via email as well. Back to you, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Dave. So in the remaining few minutes, I mean, this is a basic record set, but it's pretty much the same thing over and over. I'm waiting for the screen to come back. Here we go. Share screen. Okay, let's go back to Adobe Sign, manage. Okay, so this one that's highlighted is the one that was just done. And if I go to history, right? That's the audit trail. There's everything that was done. And there's the record set that was sealed. So there's a very unique capability that's just been pushed to all machines in CDOT. In fact, it should be on your machine now. If you're in ProjectWise, well, let me back up. Adobe Sign has been integrated with ProjectWise. So what does that mean? Well, you could seal a record set, right, like this, and then you could download a copy, and then you could take that copy and put it in the record set, the record set folder in ProjectWise for that project. But that's kind of painful having to do that because you'd have to have gotten it in the first place and then put it through the sign process and then put it back in ProjectWise. So the process actually works now where you can select a record set. That's assuming it's less than 50 megabytes because you'll get an error message if you don't. You can highlight the record set in ProjectWise and you can right click. And if you'll cursor on down to the bottom of your options in ProjectWise, when you right click on the record set for the options, one of the options will be send to Adobe Sign, web edit. And when you click on that, what it will do is pass that file to Adobe Sign. That's what it does. And you will end up right here. And that record set, which needs to be sealed, will be right here. The default text will be here. And all you can start setting it up right then. And when you're done by meaning you've gone to the next, you've hit next at the bottom down there and you've used your templates and told everybody where they're supposed to sign. When you hit send, it will begin its automated workflow. And when everyone has sealed it and the document is complete, it not only will notify you that the document is complete, but it will automatically place it back in ProjectWise in the same folder where it started, and it will append to the file name the word signed. So you don't even need to get the file out of ProjectWise, don't need to put it back in there. You can start in ProjectWise, complete the process, and it's automatically put back there for you. We don't have a training on that yet. That capability was just rolled out within the last couple of days. But if any of you are adventurous or you've already used Adobe Sign, feel free to use it. It works very well. I tested it last night. Let's see, what else can we cover in the remaining few minutes here that I haven't covered? Steve, can you think of anything that I forgot that we ought to tell this group?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive, short of showing the ProjectWise,
Yeah, that's on another machine. I don't have access to it from this machine. I think what I probably ought to do is develop a small video training on just that option, with a simple document. Because that can be done with not just record sets. I mean, for CDOT, Steve, what's important is, the issue with hundreds of different types of forms going out to the field and then having the construction project do the forms and then mail them back and get them in ProjectWise and get them in the right folder. That's always an issue. But we could actually, say, right-click on one of our field forms, assuming it was in ProjectWise already, basically send that form out for execution by the field and have it returned automatically to the correct folder. And from a document management standpoint, that's really a powerful option. So one last thing before we close, I forgot to mention it before. All of these fields that you see in your manage environment here, you can sort them. So if I wanted to look at, for instance, if I look at my templates and I look down here, I'll notice that the templates are out of order. See, it starts record set plans 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. If I hit document title to sort it, watch what happens. They're all in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you don't have to do that, just something to know. Got a notes capability here too. When you see this little symbol, there's a note. And if I highlight that and then look at the note over here, date fields updated 6/30/19. That's a note I put in there because I revised the template. But it's not only for use in templates. If you look at, for instance, the executed documents, notice a few of them have notes. So if I look at this one, what is this one here? What is that note on that file? This invoice represents the first invoice to be fully electronically routed via Adobe Sign workflow in the history of CDOT. Complete signing process took 9 minutes, 7 seconds. So you don't have to put notes in there, but if for some reason you have a need on a record set or another document to include a note, this is where you do it. And that's after it's executed. You just hit notes and then type in what you want, hit save the note, and it's there pretty much forever. So Steve, I think we're done with the basic training on documents and record sets.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to go ahead and end the recording now.